up, guys? So I kind of been wanting to do this video for a while, but I hadn't found what I needed cheap enough on eBay, and what I needed was an Xbox to be my donor for my other Xbox. So basically, this is my original Xbox. Not the, well, it's an original Xbox, the first Xbox, but it's not my original one. The first one I had actually painted blue, and I put a chameleon mod chip in it, and this was around 2005 2006 when Xboxes were the newest of the new, you know, right before 360s came out. But they were, you know, 360s came out in like 2006, I think, and you know, this was still the newest of the new at the time. So anyway, this Xbox here has been TSOP flashed, which means the original BIOS has been overwritten to allow you to run unsigned code, which when you can run unsigned code, you can run game backups on there. So think of it this way. When this was popular at the time, I was able to go to the video store and rent an Xbox game, and this is the time that when they had one-day rentals. So you could go there, rent an Xbox game for one day, copy it on your Xbox, and take it back. So I'd basically bring the game home, put it in the disk drive, hit copy it on there, make sure it launched, and take it back. And this was done by, like I said, having the mod chip in there, and then you install your different stuff, like what they had on here, what was called dashboards. So it was basically like your operating system. So it would boot up to a dashboard. Like at the time I ran Avalanche, I ran XBMC, I think I ran another one called something else. I forget the names now, it's been so long, but Avalanche was one of the main ones that I ran, and then the other one was Unleash X, I believe, that I ran. I think that's what I still have on here is Unleash X. But basically you would go onto the dashboard, then you would launch your copy program, put the disk in, copy it would copy it on there, and that's it. And beyond the mod chip that's in there, you actually replace the hard drive, and that sits on this side inside the case. And the original hard drive in here was only like an 8 gig, and I think if you unlocked it, it became a 10 gig. Well, you could put another hard drive in here, and I did this at the time by hot swapping. So basically I got it booted up with the original hard drive with the mod chip in there, and then while it was running I unplugged the original hard drive, put another hard drive, and was able to format it that way, and it formatted it, and it, you know, with the mod chip it sees all the gigs, which I have a 250 gig in here. Now you could put more than that, like I installed from my other friend. He had an Executor mod chip, and I installed a 500 gigabyte in his Xbox for him, so he had a lot more room, but you know, 250 was still quite a bit. But the games themselves were anywhere from 4 to 5 gig, maybe a little more depending on the game and that kind of thing. But basically right now I have probably about 75 games that are actual Xbox discs installed on here. And then I've got emulators for like Nintendo 64, Atari, arcade machines, the FBA systems, you know, regular NES, just pretty much all the arcade or all the emulators that you would want are installed on that. You can just boot it up and play like a normal console. Of course, it's emulation, so with emulation comes other problems. You know, not all games ran, but this was at the time when people would. You know, like I believe the guy on YouTube now, his name's Modern Vintage Gamer. He was the one that ported a lot of stuff to this, so you could run these emulation programs on here. So he did like SNES 9X and stuff. And now when you like boot up the N64 emulator, you can choose between 3 emulators to make sure that you can pick one of the 3 to make sure the N64 game runs the best that it can. So anyway, this was my original one. You can see this one was painted green. I don't know, this was done so long ago. I think I used Krylon Fusion, and it still wasn't that great a paint. It's held up. It's got a few nicks here and there, and you can see I put 360 inside on there. It was just the decal, and that was because I had the dashboard skin, so like it was an overlay. It made it look like a 360 because 360s had just came out at the time whenever I put that sticker on there and put that skin on there. So this, you know, wasn't the new console at the end of it, you know, when I did that. And then this here is what was original Jewel. You can see the original one is just the green Xbox Jewel, no LEDs under it. This one actually installed LEDs in. They don't work anymore. I think they just went out. I wasn't great at wiring at the time, so I probably just didn't wire it correctly, even though it was just 12 volt. But I think either the resistors burned up or something in it. And you can see there's a pot leaf on there. Well, that's because I was just young and dumb, you know, at the time, and I thought that was cool. So it was a clear jewel LED, and it was etched pot leaf in there that you could order online, and lit up green LEDs behind it. It looked awesome at the time, but you know, times have changed. I don't like that look. I don't even want my kids to, like, I keep this tucked back whenever I use it, so I don't like the kids to see things like that. So I really want to change all of this back to this, which is why I purchased this Xbox. So with this Xbox, I bought it off eBay for $15 plus like $10 shipping, and it boots up and works. It's not modded or anything, but the disk drive in it doesn't always function. Like when I got it, I was able to, after a few tries, I got the disk drive to open, and I put my game in it, which I have this game. This is the only actual Xbox game that I own on disc anymore. I used to have a bunch, but this is one of my favorite games, so I still have this one, and I put it in there, and now I can't get it back out, but I will be able to. Once I take it apart, I'll pop the top of the disk drive off, and I will be able to get my game back. But basically this is a 100% working Xbox, so I'm going to transfer the internals of this to this, and this one to this one, then I'll just put that one up, you know, and probably never do anything with it. Also here in the front, I actually have a couple of these, but this is just the DVD. You had to buy this separately. Even though that could play DVDs, you couldn't actually watch the DVDs without buying this dongle and the remote, which was just retarded. So they wouldn't let you use the controller to play DVDs. But when you modded the system, you didn't need this to play DVDs. You could use the controller. Using a different app, you could watch DVDs just by hitting play on the controller and that kind of thing, and just putting a DVD in there. So that was another benefit to modding. But I painted this green, and that's going to go. I actually have another one of these. It's black, so if I need it, I'll have another one with the Xbox remote. I got 2 Xbox remotes and 2 dongles still. Okay, basically this one here just needs cleaned up. It's kind of dirty and grungy. It's not scratched up. It's actually in really good condition. No bangs, no marks or anything. And as far as this one here, you can see I have a hole here in the front. Well, I wasn't great with the Dremel at the time, and what I did was, since these ports are basically USB, they're just a different, you know, plug style here, you could actually hook up a USB to it, and I actually expanded these 2 ports, which actually connects to a single USB inside of here, and I expanded it to 4 plug-in USBs, so I could actually plug in a mouse and keyboard. So I was able to plug in a mouse and keyboard for my, you could actually boot a version of Windows CE on here at the time. It wasn't great. It didn't do anything. It actually crashed a lot. It was just kind of like a fun thing to do, and I thought it looked cool to have those on here. So basically I did that, and I ended up taking it out because it just looked like trash, and I never really used it, so I ended up taking it out. And so the 4-port USB hub has been gone a while, but I ended up throwing my ports away at the time when I did this, because I thought I'd never use them, because I never played with more than 2 people on here anyway. So now I've been missing those ports, so we're going to steal the ports from the other Xbox and replace those, as well as get this sticker off here. You can see that's says mod inside Avalanche. These are like case badges for PCs, but this is made for an Xbox, and I think that's pretty cool. So I'll probably end up popping that off of there and putting it on the new Xbox, even though it's a little bit yellowed. So I may end up trying to get a different one offline if they're cheap enough, or if you can even find them anymore. I know you can still get mod chips for these, so that shouldn't be a big deal. This right here was never hooked up. Whenever I modded my friend's Xbox, he didn't need this, and it basically has plugs right here that would have plugged into the mod chip. Like this is for Executor, and that would have lit up. Well, I don't have that mod chip, so it never got plugged in, so it's basically just stuck on there for looks. But I won't need that anymore. You can see how terribly I glued this in there with the super glue. It actually made these white marks on the plastic around the edges from where I glued it, so that never really looked great anyway. And on the bottom, I'm pretty much missing all the case feet, and I still have the screws for this, but I never put them back in because I always took it apart to do different things. So you can see here that the top just comes right off, and then under here you can see the LED jewel and the wiring. I just kind of taped it up since it didn't work anymore. And I actually have tested this nowadays, you know, here recently, and it still doesn't work, so I'm gonna have to like go through and check the traces. Maybe some of the LEDs are burned out, I don't know, but I don't really need to have it working anyway. But basically this is pretty well at the time. You could get a few different of these drives. I think there was well, I know there was a Philips and a Samsung, and I think the other one was like Hitachi maybe. But Samsung and Philips were the best because they could read burned CDs and that kind of thing, and it was easier to copy with them. It was just more compatibility with the Samsung and Philips drives. Now this drive doesn't have a problem. In this case it has a problem, like just from taking it in and out so many times, and this bezel on the front that does come off because I think I broke the clips on it, but it stays on when the drive's open. It just kind of sits there and comes out, you know. But it doesn't always come out, so this drive actually gets stuck too, but it's not the drive's fault like the other one. That one has a problem internally in the drive. This one does not. It's just something with the case and the way this is. And I've never been able to figure it out, even though I keep setting it in there perfectly, and it just never works. So anyway, I am going to start getting that one apart and cleaned up, and then I'll get the internals out of this. This also has a green LED fan in it, so I don't know if I'll transfer that or not. I may end up just leaving the black fan that's in there and just making it all original again, but inside, you know, kind of like a sleeper Xbox, I guess you could say, because this one, you look at it, you know it's modded. That one, you look at it, if you don't know, turn it on, you don't know it's modded with these internals anyway. So that's probably what I'm going to do, but we'll see when I get there. But basically at the time, I had a lot of other mods in here. I used to have a little fan that sat here that blew on the hard drive, even though it really didn't need it. It was just something I wanted to hook up. And of course, like I said, the LED fan in there, and then it's got a Maxter 250 gig hard drive, like I said, and basically that's it. You know, it's pretty basic. Other than that, just a classic modded Xbox. But I really want to get it looking nicer and get rid of that pot leaf on the top and go back to just original looking and a lot cleaner and nicer. So I'm going to turn the camera off now. I'm going to take that one apart and get the case cleaned up. That way I can just transfer everything in it, and then I'll turn the camera back on when we start transferring everything. And then at the end of the video, we're going to plug this up and boot it up, and I'll show you what the dashboard and what a modded Xbox looks like. So stay tuned. Alright, I've literally got everything apart. Got all the metal shields out, the bottom shield, all the plastics. Everything is ready to get washed, because you can see it's quite dusty. Now, for some of you that might be interested that actually know a little bit about these Xboxes, my Xbox over here, the one that's already modded, is a version 1.0, and that means it's the easiest of the easiest to mod. I think they go up to like version 1.6. This one was a little bit harder to tell, but I pretty much know right in the range of where it is. There's a couple ways you can tell. You can look at the video chip, which is right here on the back, and this one is a Connexent, which puts it anywhere between a 1 and a 1.3, I think. And then you can also look at the serial number on the back of the console, or actually on the Xbox, it's on the bottom. Well, this is the top, but on the bottom here, mine's all scratched off, so I can't see anything. I can almost make out a manufacture date of 2003, but everything else is scratched off and missing any important information. So with that manufacture date, I'm gonna guess this is between a 1.2 and a 1.3. But it's still one of the easiest to mod, because if you look right here, all of those holes right here where you would normally put a mod chip are empty. In later versions they filled all these solder holes up, and they also, I think, removed them on even further revisions up to maybe 1.5 and 1.6. I don't know if they're still there on those. So it does make it a lot harder to modify. But this is still a pretty early board, so I could possibly in the future modify this one as well, because it is 100% working with no issues. So that's pretty cool. It's just really dusty. I really didn't think I would get one that early buying off eBay, but I in my opinion, I got pretty lucky, because I expected like a 1.5 or a 1.6, which are a lot harder to mod. At least back in the day they were. I don't know how it is nowadays. It could be super easy nowadays. So anyways, I'm gonna go get all this stuff washed up, and then we're gonna transfer the internals of the other Xbox that's modded into this one. Alright, so now I've got the other Xbox completely apart, and it's been washed, and now it's drying. So while that's drying, we're going to go ahead and take this one apart. And I think I'm going to switch all of like this component, because this has been in this Xbox, you know, since it was original, and it's a little bit yellowed and everything. And I'm going to switch it with this one that's a lot less yellowed. Actually, this one looks brand new, just a little bit dusty, so I'll clean that up too. And it'll look a lot better once it's all back together. Now you can see here I've added some things into this wiring. There's some extra zip ties, because here you can see I ran some fans. So I may end up switching the power supply in here, or in here with the one and the other one. That way that's back to stock and looking a lot better and a lot cleaner. So you can see this one doesn't have any screws holding anything in, because normally there's a screw on here that holds this in. There's 2 screws up here, and then that holds that in. But then here I've cut a part out for a fan that I used to have in it. So I think I'll end up switching all that out, because I'm pretty sure everything is the same. If not, it's pretty darn close. You can see here's the 2 power supplies. This one's a little bit different, so maybe it's a little bit more updated. But it should work just fine, I imagine. Actually, you know what? It's not going to work. I can see that these have different connectors to the board. Whereas this one's got, what's this, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22 pin. This one's only got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 pin. So that's not going to work. So I'm going to have to keep my power supply, but that's not a big deal. I'll just clean it up a little bit. It does work, so there isn't no problem with that. Kind of weird that they updated that. But, you know, it's just what they do over time. They'll update everything. And also here, it looks like they've updated this part of the board, whereas this has a daughter board where the USB ports plug in for the controllers. My original one here has this daughter board that stands up, and then the controllers plug into that, whereas this one they just directly plug right in the board on the newer one. So this is definitely like a version 1.3, I would say, because I don't think they would have changed that much changing it to a 1.2. But definitely during, you know, from 1.1 to 1.3 they would have changed that. And also you can see here, my original one has a fan here and this one doesn't. So, you know, that's kind of cool that the original is a lot, you know, a lot better. But maybe they made the newer one run cooler. Either that or they just wanted to stick a bigger heatsink on it to keep it cool. So let's get this off of here. So I'm going to try to switch whatever parts I can on it. I may not be able to switch everything like I want, but I'll try to switch whatever newer parts I can onto here. But it's for sure the fan will swap over, so that won't be a big deal. Because I don't really need an LED fan anymore. I mean, it's not a big deal to me at all. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and take all these screws out and take all of this stuff out. Alright, so that's everything out. Quite a bit of dust under my Xbox too. Like I said, I don't think I've had this board out probably in, man, 8 years or more, it seems like. Since I've last cleaned it. It may be longer than that since I've actually had this completely out. You can see there's no metal in here like the other one. I actually took all the metal out too, so that could be part of my problem with my tray, because my tray likes to get stuck too, but it's a problem with the case. So that could be something with mine too. So I'll probably put all the metal back into the other one, and then I'll clean this one all up and put that one back in there, since the tray is messed up on it anyway. I'm not going to use the other one. I'll probably end up just using it for parts, because I don't need to have 2 modded Xboxes at all. But now we can see I've already actually just took these out less than a month ago, and I put new Arctic Silver 5 on both of these heat sinks, so these are good to go 100% for sure. So I'm going to leave all that, and then I'll just take some cotton swabs, and I'll just get all the dust off of this board, because I like to go around with all the electronics and use some alcohol and cotton swabs and just clean everything up and shine it up. So I'm definitely going to do that. But you can see there's no mod chip on here at all. And actually this one, I'm pretty sure this was a version 1.0. This may not be. This may be like a 1.2 actually, because it does have the Connexit, so that puts it between version 1 and 1.3. And then these holes aren't filled in, which that later model is, so that tells me that probably that this is a version 1.2. So the first Xbox I had was probably a version 1.1, I would say, because I know I didn't get this one very long after. And this has some marking on it. That may have been done when we T-SOT flashed it. I don't know if that says version 1 or what that says, but I don't think it's a version 1, because I'm pretty sure the first one had no solder in these holes right here, because I was able to do a solderless mod chip that actually put the pins down in those holes, and then you use this screw here to hold that down, and then you plug your mod chip into that, and you didn't have to solder anything. Whereas the original mod chip for these had like 29 wires or something to that effect. And so yeah, I would say this is probably a version 2, and that other one over here is a version 3. So anyway, I am going to get this cleaned up and get everything switched over that I can, and then we're gonna start putting it all back together in the new cleaned up case, so stay tuned.